All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for showing up. I can control everything but the weather, so I really appreciate you being here. We have three good companies for you tonight, so I want to get started right away. First company is Electro Metals and Mining. I wanted to get that right. And with us is Daryl Hodges. He's the CEO. They're not public yet. They're going to be listed. He'll explain it to you, but they're going to be coming public very soon. So a very good story. So go ahead.
Thank you very much, Paul and Sophie. I appreciate that. And thank you, everybody, for taking the time to come out on a classic April day. Yes, this is just before we get started here. I'll just give everybody a chance to get seated. This is a story that we're quite excited about, actually. And it's the kind of story that, in my years of experience, is a classic story that I think is the kind of thing that you can build a company around. And it has this sort of appeal that investors would like for multiple reasons, which I'll get into. And we think that this is going to be a winner at some point. It's a Quebec-based project. We're a Toronto area-based company, and we're about to go public. There's the presentation there. I don't think I'll bother with the disclaimer for this crowd. I think you guys are all pretty seasoned, guys and ladies. But I'll just come back to this several times during this talk because this kind of lays out what we're really trying to do. The idea of this company is to try and build a pipeline of near production and cash flow potential projects. And what we're focused on here is not the battery metals per se, but base metals as they used to be called. So my background is with copper, zinc, and with copper nickel projects. I worked for Falconbridge for 10 years. What we're doing here in Quebec is our first project that we want to put into the pipeline is a copper, zinc, silver, gold, polymetallic, classic Noranda VMS type deposit. We're basically seated just outside the Noranda. We're about 55 kilometers by road from the gate of our project to the Glencore smelter. Now that's a smelter, so as you guys probably know, there's a couple of steps in between mining and smelting. You need a mill to process this. And that's one of the reasons that we like this project is the location is excellent. And there are three mills within distance of our project. The mineralized material, I can't call it ore yet, mineralized material could be trucked to and processed. Now, the characters of this project that we like the most is that we've got resources already known, already drilled out. There's actually been past production on this property. So we know we're in a productive area of the Noranda camp. Secondly, we have excellent infrastructure. So as I've just mentioned, we've got road all the way to the Noranda smelter. By highway, you can get over to Timmins very quickly. We're just near the Highway 101. We're near the Ontario-Quebec border inside Quebec. And with that excellent infrastructure, obviously that reduces the economic costs of building a project where we are. So these are sort of when we think about location, this is the sort of thing that we really like about this project. We already have, as I said already, it's been extensively explored in the past. There's been production. There's an existing bulk sample permit already that comes with this project that we've inherited. And that sort of just speaks to the maturity of this project. It's still exploration, but it's very advanced exploration. It's brownfields exploration in an area that's known deposits. So that's what we quite like about it. In addition, the Noranda camp and the way the deposits occur, often what the explorers would look for is a favorable horizon. And on that horizon, multiple deposits can occur. Well, we already have two deposits that are known on this horizon. And from the due diligence work that we were doing before we picked up the project, there's additional two other indications of two other potential deposits along this. So, we're looking at the situation where we've got resources. We know that these resources can be expanded by drilling. We know that there's a favorable horizon, so we can find other deposits along this horizon. In addition, there's a few more targets on this property that have come out of the data that we've been looking at. So what we're talking about is a project where you've got resources that can be expanded, you've got exploration nearby, it's sort of under the head frame type of thinking. And in addition, there's some grassroots targets that have really never been explored properly. So this project and what we're trying to do incorporates all of these aspects. We have 100% ownership of about 800 hectares of property with a very interesting copper-silver anomalies from previous work. When I say previous, this goes back to the 50s and early 60s, which is kind of unusual for Noranda because you would think that this area has been, thoroughly explored. But here we are with a decent-sized property with some good showings of gold and silver that have never really been re-examined for 50, 60 years already. So we picked this up. The remainder of it, which is about 58 square kilometers, is an option agreement. And the option agreement is with Globex Mining. Probably some of you in this room already know Jack Stock. That's who we picked this property up from. I have some history with this property because back in 2006, I took a company public called First Metals. And First Metals put the first deposit into production in about 15 months from standing start to production. And it went bankrupt actually in 2009 after the financial crisis. They just couldn't quite make it and copper price plummeted. But we know that this thing was economic. It was actually cash flow positive within a year. And that's kind of the type of thing that we're looking at for this area. So we know that we can come up with some copper, zinc, silver, gold. We know that it can be productive and profitable. I won't get into the use of the metals. I think anybody that's in this room probably is familiar with the applications of copper and zinc and the potential for that, right? Plus, I only have 15 minutes. Why Rouyn-Noranda? Well, I've already sort of mentioned that it's a productive area. We know that there are numerous deposits in this area. And just by way of just saying, okay, where's our starting point? On this property, we have the two deposits. They sort of stack up in this area. But they've only been drilled to a certain depth and extent. And the additional exploration has really not happened. Groups that have had this project before have gone back and re-drilled the same deposits. We're taking a broader approach to this, a more wider brush. I don't know if any of you still remember Ore Resources, Jim Gill, and the Louvicourt deposit in Noranda, Quebec. That's the type of thing that we think we can repeat here. There's the potential here for a very large company maker deposit, and that's what we're working towards. Here's the location I already mentioned. The Ontario-Quebec border is right here. If you drive this way, you end up over in Timmins, where the Glencore Zinc processing facility is. Here's Noranda right here, and there's a third a mill that could take this material, which is over by Timmins. And believe it or not, there's good potential that in a few years' time that the Agnico Eagle may be interested in taking some feed as well. Here's where we're sitting at this point. This is the resource on this project that's been identified and outlined. The purpose of this resource calculation was to define a high-grade underground deposit. The last owners of this property were planning to put a ramp down to about 350 meters depth and mine their way back up. When we looked at this project, we went, hello, really, you've got 2 million tons approximately sitting there that comes right up to surface. So why not look at this from the perspective of getting early cash flow, get something rolling here with some cash coming into the company, and then use that money to leverage yourself up. Now, some people say you can't take an exploration company and turn it into a mining company. Sometimes you can if you've got 20 plus years experience in the industry and know a lot of mining engineers and process engineers that want to work with you. So we'll consider that when we get to that point. But the point of the point is that this thing is a productive property with lots of potential on it. And if we want to go the route of near-term cash flow, that's an option. The deposit itself, as you can see from this is the line that I outlined, which would be the theoretical bottom of an open pit. As you can see, there's quite a bit of open potential. This is where the resource was calculated, comes down to. This is where some other indications of exploration potential are down below. As we go down on this deposit, the one thing we can say is that it goes from a copper zinc deposit down to a copper rich deposit. So there's good reasons to continue testing this at depth. However, the market is not super keen on drilling, 600, 800,000 meter deep holes at this point. So we'll take it one step at a time. Oops. Again, this speaks to what I was talking to you earlier. I'm just going to kind of reiterate what I've already said, really. So here's the two deposits. Baby was mined originally. This is the one that was mined out. Magusi is the one that we're focusing on at this point. here's the favorable horizon crossing the property, and here are the other two targets that we've identified from the old data that really nobody had sort of put much thought to in the past. We can tell that from the old records. So again, let's go with known deposits, favorable horizon, indications of mineralization, all bode well for excellent chance of a new discovery. In addition, I mentioned these weak conductors outside here. This whole area is underexplored. There's been no drilling on any of this at all whatsoever up here. In this area here, we dug out in the old files, and I mean old, these were like dusty old boxes, is where we've got some large copper-silver anomalies. So again, we're extremely excited about the possibility of new discoveries on this property. This is a sort of a block model for geologists' interpretive purposes, but really what we're saying here is volcanic terrain, lots of faulting around, and lots of potential for deposits all through the area. Who's the team? Well, we've got a diversified team on this company. Myself, I should have introduced myself in the beginning. I am a geologist by training. I spent 20 years in the industry. Last 10 of it was with Falconbridge. I worked in Flin Flon Snow Lake Belt, basically central Canada, doing VMS exploration, which is this type of deposit. Worked in the Thompson Nickel Belt, made a couple of discoveries. I'd worked at Hoyle Pond and was actually on the discovery team at Hoyle Pond back in the early 80s. Made some small discoveries of VMS deposits up in the Snow Lake camp and discovered the Hammond Reef deposit in northwestern Ontario. Spent some time working in Russia, actually at all Norilsk deposits with Falconbridge. We were trying to find a backdoor way into taking that over, so I spent quite a bit of time looking at mines in Russia and evaluating their potential. Doug Harris is a CA that worked with me in the investment banking industry, which I got into after Falconbridge. I've basically spent the last 20-ish years in investment banking as well. Paul Negrel is a very well-seasoned 30-year veteran geologist that's been with us since we started the company, but I've known Paul for 30 years. He's worked in the Thompson Nickel Belt, he's worked in Raglan, he's worked in Timmins at Kid Creek, he's worked in Africa, Brazil, started companies, so very good team. And an independent board that's quite experienced in the capital markets. The plan that we're looking at here is to raise minimum of $3.5 million. We want to start with $1.5 million hard dollars and raise anywhere from $2 to $4 million in flow through. We'll mix it up, but flow through is quite an acceptable way to explore these days, so that's what we'll target. If we get the full $5 million, we're looking at 13,000 meters of drilling, and we'll be working on expanding the resources that I've spoken to, get some additional data on the metallurgy. There's already a positive metallurgical report. We need to refine that a little bit better and basically explore the other targets that we have on the property. So we want to get going, accelerate an extensive and intensive drilling program, both on the resources, the resource expansion, and the other targets on the property. Where are we at this point? Well, we've done a private raise to get the company started. That's allowed us to file the 43-101 report. We're just wrapping up our audit. We've identified and we've struck a deal. I'm just actually fine-tuning the paperwork on a RTO of a shell company. So we've got that in the bag, and we're basically ready to go. What we need to do is raise the capital to get this project started. Once we get that done, we will be public. I'm not allowed to say that, but that's what will happen if we get this all done.
When they get the money.
And of course, then we basically follow up. We continue right down the path here of resource drilling, the mineral processing work, the engineering and studies, and basically we make a decision to put the first deposit into production. Capital structure. This company has 33 million shares outstanding at this point. We're valuing ourselves at 10 million. We're assuming a 30-cent financing. And the split between here, this is the insiders. This is the ownership of the insiders. There's about $2.6 million invested into this company so far. I'm personally into it for about $400,000. We have warrants and options that are pretty close to being in the money today. They're on average, the strike price is about 25.5 cents. So we're looking at going out with a 30-cent financing. So the options that are, and not the options, pardon me, the warrants that are out there are not particularly dilutive. If we were to exercise all the warrants, that's about another $4 million that we'll bring into the company. So we've kind of thought this through fairly well to get ourselves in the right ballpark. With our comps, if we compare ourselves, this is obviously you can't read this, but you can get the sense of this diagram. If we look at the grade of the deposit based on that existing resource, we see that on a copper and zinc equivalent, that we're fairly well placed with respect to the grade of this thing. So we're not the highest grade, but we're certainly up in the upper end of it. It's interesting. From a, oops, sorry. Hello. Yes. When I talk about the 30-cent price and the $10 million valuation, this is where we park in that same peer group of companies. So again, we're not the most expensive. That's Star Peak, by the way, if anybody's following the VMS plays in Quebec. And this is Arizona Metals, which is another VMS play down in Arizona. We're sitting down at this end. So we've got some good opportunity for value accretion in this company as well, and price to basically get the job done. Again, why Electro Metals? We have a great location. We have excellent resource to develop, resource to expand, and new discoveries to make. We have experienced management. We have an exploration earning on this project, and we're all ready to fire up. We just need to get some money in the door, and then we'll get this company public, and we'll move it forward. And we're quite confident and extremely enthusiastic about moving this ahead. That's pretty much the end of it. I guess I'll, sorry, that's one last thing. So it is an option agreement. We have terms to deal with here. There's probably been about $40 million put into this project at this point, which includes the mining that was done. And we're all set to go. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? Sorry. Do we have any questions? Go ahead.
What's the question?
Oh, yeah, just one quick question. The property you own 100%, that's the Maguzi deposit?
No, so that's what we have the option agreement on.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So the 100% is the sort of 800 hectares that we've staked beside it, and the 11 kilometers of property with the 2 deposits on it. That's the option agreement.
The option is the bigger piece. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks.
So who are your major investors?
Our major investors at this point are, we're largely retail. We've got a couple of small institutional investors that are in for about probably total of about 25% of the company.
Can you tell us who the major?
Do you know Roger Dent?
Yeah.
Roger Dent is, and his company are the biggest, and a sort of retired investor out of Bay Street is a guy named Alf Worth. Don't know if you guys know Alf Worth. He used to run HMLO. He's another investor. He's in for about probably 5% of the company.
Thank you.
And so I have a question.
Yes.
So would that be, I guess, based on your relationships from your history and background with Jennings Capital and so forth, is a lot of where these investors are coming from? Because you have quite the pedigree. I don't know if you skimmed over it during the slide.
The investors are in, I think, for 2 reasons. One, they sort of recognize that, we're sort of a highly experienced team. And secondly, the quality of the project with its location being close to, we're not off in the middle of Nunavut, and we're not sort of drilling, moose pasture, that we've got a solid project to build around. I mean, historically, I think what people recognize in the mining industry is that, and we've all heard this, I'm sure, is the best place to go look for a deposit is where there's already one existing. And so that was my modus operandi at Jennings Capital when I was running the mining group there, built the mining group and ran it, was that we like to not focus on, raw exploration, because, yes, you can get your 100 bagger, but that's a lottery. And what we always like to focus on was known deposit, companies with known deposits with resource expansion potential. And it's kind of, I'm following my own book, basically.
What is the duration of your drilling program?
How long would that take to
Yes.
go from start to finish? We'd probably have that done in about, we'd take a break partway through, but we'd probably have that done within 15 months, start to finish.
Hey, Daryl. Really advanced projects for a company, a mining company that's going public. That's pretty impressive. I've not seen that very often. Copper seems to be the driving metal here, and of course, everyone's waiting for copper to bust because everyone's talking about
Yeah.
copper that should have been come out of the
Yeah.
price range that they're in now a long time ago, and so it's going to happen sooner rather than later. So, is that the driving force, like for amongst the four metals that you've mentioned? Is that the
Yeah,
big
the
one?
the copper is definitely over the life of this project. The copper will be the focus of it, exactly.
Okay.
I think I said earlier that the shallow part of this deposit that outcrops comes to surface is more of a copper zinc, and as you get deeper in this project, it becomes much more copper rich in a relative sense.
I've got a question for you, Daryl.
Certainly.
Are the grades going higher and higher as you go deeper for the copper?
Yes. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
So, and how deep are you going to drill? What's your deepest?
Well,
gonna
I
be?
mean, for this phase right now, what we're looking at is we're probably going to drill down around 400 to 450 meters at the deepest. What we want to do is before we get too deep, there's a bit of infill that really needs to be done to define this project and sort of see where, some of we're going to be looking at economic sensitivities. So we want to sort of see what's the deep part, what makes sense economically to think about putting a pit in there. But there's one drill hole that's, it's like the one we want to go after, and it's about 600 meters deep. And there was a 3.5, almost 4% copper intersect over about 8 meters.
Wow.
So we know that there's some good high grade down below, and we know that what you don't know with these deposits, these VMS deposits, is ultimately where's the center of gravity on this thing, and you often don't know that until it's all finished. But on this one here, we're seeing that, and this is why the previous owners had been thinking about going underground on this so quickly and thinking about a ramp and driving a ramp down to depth, is because this thing does go fast. And the first original drill programs was this is an underground mine. But another way to look at this is start at the top and work your way down.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
What's that name?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so the resource that's in the 43-101 would be the resource that we, where am I here? Oops, I'm going the wrong way. Hang on a second, I'll give you the exact numbers here. Oh, this is way back. Whoops, here we go. So this is the historic resource that is in the 43-101. This was done by SRK, yes, in 2014. And it was based on the attempt to put a ramp down to 350 meters deep. So what they were trying to do, the previous owners, they were trying to go after a high grade underground mine. So here's the grade, 720 in two lenses. They broke it into a copper and a zinc side. 730,000 tons of 3.26 copper and 580,000 tons of 8.5% zinc, and with another inferred of 350,000 tons of 3.4 copper, and that's the inferred, which is the deepest part that they didn't have that much drilling in. So what we've seen in the historical, and you'll see that if you look at the 43-101 report, is that this deposit goes as large as 8 million tons, and it's all grade sensitive.
Well, thanks, Daryl. And Daryl's going to be around, and you can
Yep.
talk to him at length after. Enjoy the rest of it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks, Sophie.
Our next company is called Hemlo Explorers. With us tonight is Brian Howlett. He's the CEO, and I'll let him explain to you why the name Hemlo.
Oops.
Brian, go ahead.
Thank you, Paul. Well, I'm not sure who here is familiar with the Hemlo mine, but it was founded in 1985 by actually someone I replaced his son in this job, who died unfortunately in a car accident. But Don McKinnon found the Hemlo mine back in 1985, and Murray Pesum. That was the birth of Murray Pesum as a promoter. The Hemlo mine, and I'll get into this, but and I'll skip the forward-looking statements. But the Hemlo mine sparked a gold rush in Canada around the north shore of Lake Superior back in '85. And they actually had a mine running by 1987. Incredible speed with which they got this produced. So a bit about who we are and why I'm here. We have 36 million shares outstanding, a bunch of warrants and options way out of the money. We have cash in the bank of about $800,000, so we're in very good shape money-wise. What's important is our ownership structure. Northfield Capital owns 30%. Lead Jones Gable, which a bunch of people know, owns 20%, and Barrick Gold owns 5%. And then insiders own 4%, and friends and family, which is a lot of the McKinnon family, own another 12%. So it's very tightly held, and we're well backed when we do a financing, and at some point we will do one. We haven't announced anything yet, but it's coming. Little color on Northfield Capital. That's a gentleman named Robert Cudney. Robert Cudney has been responsible for the sale of 2 or 3 big mining deals in the exploration business. His last one was Gold Eagle Mines right beside Goldcorp in Red Lake. He sold that in 2008 for $1.5 billion. Prior to that, he built a company called FNX, and he sold it to Quadra for $3.5 billion. So he's done very well in building companies from the ground up, and is a big supporter moving his companies forward. Lead Jones Gable is primarily Don Ross has been a big supporter of our company. Don Ross is about 90, and he's the real head of Lead Jones. Barrick Gold owns 5%. That's through a deal we did with them this summer, and we'll get into that in a little more. So here's all of our project claims, and you'll see all the blue is what we have, and this over here, and the red is the Barrick option that they've optioned from us last summer, and we'll go into more detail about that. So, and the other thing that's important, particularly in Ontario, this is the First Nations whose ground we work on, and we signed a landmark deal with them in the summer of 2022. We had some challenges, but we overcame them and have a great relationship, which is really important in the province of Ontario. It's not like Quebec; it's a little harder there, but they said we've overcome all that. So where do we operate? We operate in the shadow of 2 mines. One's operating, and one is coming into production in the next couple of years. So this is a picture of the Hemlo mine. This is right from the Barrick website. They've produced over 21 million ounces, and they still have about 6 million ounces left in reserve. And they optioned this property from us. They're looking for additional feed for their mine. Enough to make this a viable operation in the current state, so they're looking for more feed. So they're very excited about the opportunity that we provided to them. Then we get into Generation Mining. They've built, or they're in the process of building, the Marathon Palladium Copper deposit. And right now, in the resources, they have 4.2 million ounces of palladium, 1.1 billion pounds of copper, 1.4 million ounces of platinum. Now this economics is out of date. They just updated on Friday, but the numbers have stayed very similar. And we're good friends with them. We know them well, and they tell us that people want to hear about copper. And I'll follow on Daryl's point that copper is where the world's going. So even though copper for them is 30% of their revenue going forward, that's what people want to know about. But palladium is obviously very important for the electrical vehicle market as well. And they're right up over here, just off of our claims, and we'll get into detail about that. And I'll bring up Big Tego and Anishinabeg. They are our First Nations that we deal with. We signed a landmark agreement with them in September 2022, and it gives us clarity to explore until we get to the point of an IBA. So very secure in terms of moving this forward. The key to that agreement was a project we called Hemlo West. We had acquired that from O3 Mining in 2020 for about 200,000 worth of shares. And they are looking to protect land around them. So we transferred those claims to them for $1. Their idea is not to explore those claims, but if they do, we've maintained a 5% royalty on those claims. So it protects us going forward. And it also guarantees certain benefits like jobs, contracts, things like that going forward. So I do a little bit of geology here. I'm an accountant by trade, but I can give you a bit of the geology. So this green line here, that's our property bordered with Generation Mining. These are the 3 open pits, and we're right off to the side of them. You know, within, this is about 3 kilometers. We think all of our mineralization's on this western border. Oh. Okay. And why we like this is we have all these radial and concentric faults. So as the cobalt complex caldera collapsed, it pushed magma out this way into our property, and and it would be dammed up by these concentric faults. This is the Pick River. That's probably a big fault as well. And this is probably the most important slide I have. So this red line here is the outline, we think, of the cobalt complex caldera, and we flew a VTEM of the whole property, and this will be our target for 2023 drilling. Will be all these plate models that we've modeled off the drilling. And what's really neat about that is we did a bunch of soil and outcrop sampling. Now where we are, we don't have a lot of outcrop, so soils were more important to us. But if you see, these are our outcrops. And for here we see gold, copper, and platinum, all here, or gold, palladium, and platinum, all in the outcrop. Then we get into base metals, nickel, chromium, and copper in large sections here. This will be for probably 2024, but this is where we're going to look this year. But if you start recognizing, they're all on the same horizon. These are our soil samples, again, on the same horizon, gold, palladium, and platinum. Coming in here, again, copper, chrome, and nickel, all anomalous amounts along the same horizon. So this gives you a sense of the scale. This is how close we are to the Marathon project. We call it Project Idaho. It's just kind of a name that came up during a meeting. It was our westernmost project, so that's kind of what came to be here. Now, Barrick, why did they like with their option? This is about a 2.7 kilometer trend. We called it Wire Lake, and they really like all of the drilling. And you can't read it, but you can see drilling. There's about 12,500 meters drilled into Wire Lake, and they've seen enough in there to give them confidence that there's a deposit here, and that's their goal is to find that, to develop that deposit. So in green here, that's their property area. They can earn an 80% interest by delivering us a feasibility study within 6 years of a definitive agreement, which was signed in August 2022. In the first year, they had to spend $800,000. They've already spent $1 million, but my guess is they'll spend $3 to $4 million in the first year on an $800,000 commitment, and then they got to spend $1 million a year after that. So once they deliver us a pre-feasibility study, we'll be an 80-20 joint venture. At that point, we'll decide how we move forward. If they need more than 6 years to get to a pre-feasibility, they can buy additional years from us at $500,000 a year. So to give you a sense of scale, this is about 15 kilometers from their mine up to Wire Lake, which is about here. Okay, this is their exploration highlights. This is the quarterly results they gave us. They've come in here and spent about $1 million, and they had done a lot of whole rock sampling. They re-assayed a lot of our core, did core scanning, and again, this is Wire Lake right here, as we said. They've done a lot of work here, but they're also up in the Beg Stock and Porphyry Lake. So lots and lots of targets for them. This was getting beyond where we could take it. So, and more on Wire-Lek. I won't get into the geology of it all. And here's some of the results we had that got them excited. 18 meters of a gram and a third, 35 meters of a gram, 2 meters to 3 grams kind of stuff. So very exciting. You know, all kind of highlighted on this gram here. Okay. One of the reasons my stock's a little low, and I don't like to be negative, we drilled this because it looks a bit like the Barrick mine. We drilled 8,000 meters back in 2021, and unfortunately came up empty. I personally believe this is a system that holds something. We just haven't identified it yet, and I think it's much deeper. I think we're probably in around 1,000, 1,500 meters down, much like the Barrick mine started. And just give you a sense of who the team is, because Daryl said the team's important. I've got 30 years of senior management experience. I'm the CEO. On my exploration side, I've got Adrian Bray, who's been 30 to 40 years of experience. Dr. Leslie Rose, she worked at Barrick's Hemlo mine and knows the whole area very well. And then Emmanuel is a newly minted PGO. He's our project guy in the field. John Harvey was the former president of Hemlo Gold Mines, and he won the Bill Dennis Award for a Canadian discovery back in 2009 when Nora discovered Eagle's Nest in the Ring of Fire. Chris Hodgson is the former Ontario Minister of Mines. He's also president of the Ontario Mining Association. And Ernie Eves is our former Premier and Finance Minister. So I've got a really strong team that helps to move this forward. So that's who we are. I'll come off of Plurilock and just take questions.
Question?
Oh, no, just one last thing. We are planning a summer drill program about 2,500 to 3,000 meters on our Project Idaho along that edge of the caldera. And we've done enough work. We're very confident, of what we expect to find. But, with drilling, you never know.
How much cash do you have on hand? Is
We've got about $500,000.
that enough for drilling?
No.
No.
No, I'm going to have to announce the financing soon. I've already done a soft marketing, and this is part of it. I've got about 70% already committed. Because I have big shareholders like Rob Cundy and Don Ross, they give me lead orders, and that'll be on our press release when we announce that they're a lead order in any financing. So it gives us a lot of strength going forward. A lot of confidence in bringing up.
I've got a question for you. The Ontario government announced a plan where they're going to help mining industry to move their projects forward. Do you qualify for that, or what stage do you have to be to qualify for that?
I can actually, absolutely, we qualify. And we did get a grant last year. They gave a grant of $200,000 to miners that applied and got approved. We've applied for a second one this year. We haven't heard yet.
Are these grants like
Just grants.
Just pure grants.
But you do have to get 200,000. I have to spend 400,000,
Okay.
and they'll give me back half.
Brian, can you just recap your share capital structure, shares outstanding, and current price and market cap?
Yeah, we got about 36 million shares outstanding. Our current price is somewhere 7 to 10. It trades in a range like that. So anywhere from $2.5 to $3.5 million. But it's a very low price for what we have in front of us. I mean, the Barrick deal alone is worth our market cap.
So moving forward with Barrick, they can take up, you said, to 80% of the project, and then you have 20.
They will earn 80% upon delivering a pre-feasibility study.
So if they move forward from there, you just maintain your 20% and they take over, or?
Well, no, they are managing their own exploration program.
Okay.
So we're out of that part of it. They're conducting the exploration. They report to me quarterly, and you'll see quarterly news coming out from us on what they've done to keep the market updated where we're going. No, at that point we'll form a joint venture, and the joint venture will be 80-20, and then we have to finance it, or we get diluted down to a 1% NSR.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
But if they find the next Hemlo, we'll finance it.
oh, no kidding.
I have no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
What kind of resources Barrick looking
They're hoping to find, you know, I don't think they've put a target on the number of ounces, but they're looking for a large open pit on Wire Lake. Wire Lake is absolutely going to be an open pit. It's all near surface. Everything's that's only been drilled to about 150 meters. They want to bring it down to 300 to 400 meters. They are planning a 4,000 meter program this summer, probably starting in May. If they get lucky, they're going to keep going. But they have a minimum 4,000 meters planned. They haven't outlined it to us what it is yet, but I know it will be on Wire Lake.
And you believe the main mineral is copper?
No, gold.
Gold.
Yeah, the Hemlo mine, sorry, is just a gold mine.
Okay.
Yeah, where we're operating in the west side of we expect copper, platinum, palladium, gold. We expect, you know, multiple developments over there, right? But like just as Generation Mining has.
On that surface, what do you have in terms of mineralization on that deposit? So you said you have some graph samples.
Which one? The Project Idaho?
Yes, I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, we have platinum, palladium, gold.
Anything interesting?
Everything is interesting, yeah.
But like, what percentage? Any like what percentage?
Oh no,
or-
no. We didn't have a permit last year, so we had to stay on the surface. We weren't allowed to drill, so we haven't drilled anything yet. So there is some historical drill going back to the 80s. We have drill logs and know they're full of sulfides, but we don't have the drill assay tables. They weren't maintained back then. They didn't have to report them to the Ontario Ministry like they do today. So we're finding anomalous copper, nickel, chrome all over the place, which tells us we're on the right track. But that's just coming out of the soil.
How big is the surface exposure?
Well, there's very little sulfur exposure.
I mean, like this, not surface exposure, but like soil sampling you have over the area. How large is it cover?
If I go back to my slide here, we sampled all of this. So this is about 400 hectares.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no, it's a good size. We did a lot of work on it, and we flew the whole property with the VTEM. And we also did a bunch of work up here because we saw some stuff we liked on the VTEM. But this was our concentration and will be our concentration. This total property is about 1,800 hectares, so it's a good sized property.
Right.
Yep.
Frank, how are you, Frank?
Hi.
Hemlo is an old name for me.
It's a very, yeah.
From the north. That was what, 60 years ago or something?
1985.
What?
1985.
Not
quite 60 years.
Almost 40 years ago.
That was what?
No, almost 40 years ago. And
It was gold then.
And it was found by my predecessor's father, a gentleman named Don McKinnon, and his son was the CEO of this company before he was tragically killed, Gordon
Just
McKinnon.
gold, eh?
Just gold, but as I said, when we get to the west side of our property, we're looking for copper, gold, platinum, and palladium. Yep. So.
All right, Brian, thank you so much. Hemlo is listed on the Venture Exchange, HMLO. Brian's going to be around after, so you can ask him a question. So Frank, you can go after him again.
And if anybody wants, I'll send them a presentation.
They will get a presentation. You'll get a link
Oh.
with the wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next company is called Plurilock. It is listed on the Venture Exchange and the symbol is PLUR. With us this evening is the CEO, Ian Patterson.
I'm from the West Coast. I was assured spring had arrived, so I'd like a refund somewhere. Yeah, thank you. So so full disclosure, we are not going to talk about rocks at all. So we are a cybersecurity company, usual disclaimer, etc. So we're a cybersecurity company. So actually, I'd be curious about this. I had a media interview earlier today with a new online publication called The Logic, and of the 4 presenters, we all within the last 7 days or 7 to 14 days had all had some sort of scam or hack or attack that affected all of us. And so this was a combination of people sending text messages saying, "Hey, your parcel is here. Reply to this." There was a multitude of Nigerian princes actually that had emailed all of us. I would be curious, has anybody not experienced some sort of attack So have you not experienced some sort of attack in the last, let's say, couple of months? Show of hands. So you've not experienced any attack that you can think of, maybe two? Okay. So what's interesting to me is that cybersecurity and digital risk right now is so prevalent that the majority of people are actually impacted as opposed to the minority. So, if you think about like when's the last time somebody was robbed at gunpoint? I mean, that's like an unusual occurrence. And yet, for some reason, we've all accepted that this happens online all the time, and suddenly that's okay. So why am I telling you that story? Well, I'm telling you that story because we are in the business of defending against those types of attacks. So Plurilock, we're organized in two divisions. We have a software division where we build and sell AI software, and then we're also we're scaling that by rolling up and acquiring regional cybersecurity solutions providers. It appears that this presentation is somewhat dated. So we're about 80 people. We're about 60 million in revenue-ish if you look at us on Yahoo Finance. And as Paul was saying, we are listed on the TSX Venture. So cybersecurity as an industry is estimated to be over $1 trillion of spending over the next 5-year period of time. Now, the specific number of trillions of dollars differs depending on who you ask, but effectively, this is just an absolute gargantuan market opportunity that exists. Why is there so much spending? Two key reasons, and we already touched upon one of them. The amount of cyber crime that exists is increasing year over year. So think of spam, think of ransomware, think of data breaches that you might have seen in the news. Some of you probably will recall a year and a half, 2 years ago, Colonial Pipeline was actually attacked. They were taken offline by a ransomware payment. Within days, people were trying to fill plastic bags full of gasoline because they were afraid that they weren't going to get gas for their car. That was one company that was taken down by a cyber attack. So businesses are spending ahead of that risk. They're trying to make sure it doesn't happen. The chart here is actually showing that 2020 saw more data records stolen than in the last 15 years combined, despite a 10% increase in spending to prevent it. So problem is getting large. Secondarily, regulation is catching up to industry. So there's now much more regulation that businesses have to comply with in order to operate. And so as part of that regulation, they have to keep data safe, they have to keep systems safe, and all of that regulation requires investment in cybersecurity. So our business strategy is that we are building AI software products, and I'll tell you about what that looks like in a second. We are acquiring regional cybersecurity solutions providers. These are companies, typically mom and pops, that already have distribution into end customers. We are realizing economies of scale through this roll-up strategy, and then we are cross-selling our high-margin SaaS software through the acquisitions that we acquired. So that's that is the virtuous cycle. So when I'm talking to you about software, this is something that is unique to us, Plurilock. And so we have an ability to recognize you as an individual based purely on how you type on a keyboard and move a mouse. We use artificial intelligence, and we're able to look at your behavioral biometrics. So similar to a thumbprint, which would be a traditional biometric, this is a behavioral biometric. We're able to use artificial intelligence. We build a signature of what's normal for you during the day. And then we use that signature once it's built to then validate that you're the right person on the device continuously throughout the day. All this technology is backed by 6 patents. It was actually a spin-out originally of a research project at the University of Victoria, which is where I'm from, where by the way, Spring has actually landed. And our customers, the very first customers of this technology were the U.S. Department of Defense and US DoD. So customers for this today are largely defense, financial services, organizations that have an absolute severe need for the best type of cybersecurity products. So that's the software division. We've also been acquiring, as I say, regional cybersecurity solutions providers. Now, there are thousands of these resellers, these mom and pops that exist in North America. We've acquired 4 of them to date. And as a result of this strategy, we've grown our revenue from approximately $500,000 2 years ago to a $60 million run rate right now. As I say, there are thousands of these acquisition targets that are out there. We are typically acquiring them for a mixture of part cash, part stock, part earnout, and then we align incentives. We make sure that the business performs post acquisition to protect everybody's interests. So we've got operations now in Los Angeles, in Ottawa, kind of New York, New Jersey, and then we're originally based in Victoria. So we've got all 4 quadrants of North America, and now is time to fill in the middle, as we say. In terms of the team, myself and my CTO, Jord, we've worked together at a venture-backed company in the past called Terapeak. It was a private company. It was eventually acquired by eBay. We were doing big data and analytics, so we were using data to answer business problems. Within the last 12 months, we've recruited COO Tucker, who's focused on M&A integration. He was formerly COO at HSBC in Europe. So really very experienced at integrating acquisitions, realizing scale, and accelerating growth. And then very, very strong finance team led by our current CFO, who has experience both in private equity as well as the public markets. On the board of directors, a couple people that I would draw your attention to. So Admiral McConnell was the former director of the NSA in the United States. He's been our lead independent director for about 5 years now. We also have Admiral Jan Tai. She was the former director of naval intelligence. She's currently on the board of Goldman Sachs. Ed Hammersley used to run Raytheon's cyber division. Jen Swindell, very experienced in the defense contracting and national security space. So absolute powerhouse team. I've often gotten the feedback that a world-class board of directors isn't always that, but actually this time it is. This time we really do have a world-class board of directors. The advisors here are a mix of defense and financial services and cybersecurity experts. So financial institutions, large cyber companies. Gaetan was actually chief security officer at Bombardier prior to its acquisition by Airbus. So really, really good team. I'm calling out kind of the pedigree of these individuals because part of our secret sauce is that these M&A opportunities that we're getting as a result of our reputation and our expertise. And so having this is really differentiated for us. I'm not going to go through all this, but suffice to say, it's been a very busy 2 years. So we went public in September 2020. At that time, we as I say, we had about $500,000 of revenue. Since then, we've landed contracts with U.S. Department of Defense, Canadian Department of Defense, U.S. and Canadian Army, Air Force in the United States, a lot of the civilian agencies, Homeland Security, IRS, Justice. On the commercial side, we're usually working with more regulated companies. So think financial services, banks, insurance providers, healthcare organizations, people who have either data to protect or systems to protect. This is a super old chart, so I'm not even going to go into this. What I would say is that the stock right now, we did a financing just right around Christmas. Did a financing at 14 cents. We raised an oversubscribed round. After that financing closed, stock ran up to I think 22 cents or so. Currently, we're at around 16 or 17 cents, and that puts us at around a $12 million market cap. So kind of right around there. We do have 2 analysts that cover the stock, Lee Jones Gable and Industrial Alliance. They've got a 60 and a 65 cent price target on the stock. This is their consensus revenue forecast, which so they pegged 2022, which we've not fully reported yet, at around 45 million, and then their original estimates was for 2023 at around 50. But that does not include any additional M&A. So this would only be an organic growth, and that doesn't include any additional targets that we intend to acquire. In terms of comparables that are out there, there's a couple of good Canadian roll-up stories. Converge Technologies is one that's pretty well known. They were an IT service roll-up. They kind of East Coast focused, but they're now a multi-billion-dollar behemoth. Calian Group would be another good comp. Quisitive, kind of more on the small cap side. One of the challenges is that there's not actually that many cybersecurity companies that are small cap, and so as a result, we have some U.S. companies here that are more on the large cap side. Palantir, CrowdStrike, Okta. These might be names that you've seen on CNBC and CNN quite a bit, but they're all multi-billion-dollar companies. And so Plurilock is one of the few small cap names to invest in a private, in a public capacity if you are bullish on cyber. These were the catalysts for 2022. I'm pleased to say that we have accomplished all of them. And our goals for 2023. And I think that the last thing that I would say is that we're seeing
No, thank you. Okay, let's get these questions on tape. So Sophie's going to pass it on. I have one question before she starts off. Do you have a BlackBerry?
not a BlackBerry.
At the end, let the mining.
I'd say that BlackBerry historically had a great reputation for security. Personally, I use an Apple device. I think it's more important to know what you do, what software you use, and what versus the device. Right. And I will help you with the processes and software.
There's so much competition in the cybersecurity field.
Yeah.
Like, what's your plan to keep ahead of the competitors?
So the question is, so there's so much competition,
Yeah.
what is our plan to differentiate? So two things. The first is that we have on our software that we manufacture, it's a very hard problem. It literally appears like magic that we're able to recognize you as an individual based on your keystrokes. So it's a hard problem to solve, number one. Number two, we have 6 patents on the area. Number three, we've also been very intentional. Some of the trade secrets. Go back to my technology side. Some of my you might need to move it behind there, buddy. Some of the trade secrets we very intentionally not patented, because as soon as you patent something, you tell the world this is what it is. So part of our IP strategy is to patent some of it, and then the things that are actually really hard, really difficult, we kept as trade secrets, so we have those people. So that is the competitive moat that we have on the technology side. The broader point, which is the one that you're making, is that cybersecurity is unbelievably competitive. And rather than us trying to hire a sales force and compete with the other thousands of cyber startups, what we've just said is we're just going to buy it instead. So, as an example, we have an advisor. He's the former chief information security officer at Bank of America. His statistic was, when he was at Bank of America, he had 200 cyber products from over 100 cyber vendors. Now, if you're Bank of America, great. We have an army of procurement people to manage that. But if you're anybody else, it's very difficult. And so as a result, what we're doing is we're acquiring those companies. We are then offering a consolidated solution to our customers, and that's actually benefit for them rather than them having to navigate this all their own. So we're turning the complexity into knowledge.
Can you comment on your cash burn? I have 2 questions, but that's the first one.
Yeah. So cash burn. So this, as I said, this deck was a little bit out of date. So as of our Q3 set of financials, we had about $2 million cash on the balance sheet. We burn on, if you look at it on an annual basis, between $200,000 and $300,000 a month. I say average it on an annual basis because on Q3 we're actually cash flow break even. It's a bit misleading though, because we have a 2/3 of our business is the U.S. government. At the end of September, they have a use it or lose it budget 200 to 300K a month on average.
So building on that, are you guys going to free cash flow this year or no?
It depends how much we invest in either M&A or growth.
Okay.
So we've taken a balance. We previously were very aggressive on the growth. We tapered that a little bit, but I'd say that we're balanced between investing for the future and
Okay, so one last question. The biggest opportunity that you see right now is M&A. Like, what does that look like? We saw what's going on with the spy balloons. That's another threat, like stuff like that. So, like, what do you see as like the biggest opportunity to take advantage right now?
I think for us, there's a silver wave of mom and pops that started 20 or 30 years ago, and they're now business owners in their 50s, 70s. A lot of these people do not have the next generation don't want to be business owners. They want jobs, but they don't actually want to own the business. And so as a result, the last acquisition we did with Free, it was exactly that. It was a Marine veteran in the 70s. His son was a general manager. His son had zero interest in having all of that weight on his shoulders. So we presented a really good opportunity for him. He got to exit. His son is now general manager of that division. He has to keep his job. Everybody's happy. And there are thousands of other stories like that. The difference with us is that we're an operating company and I am an operator. And so their other options are just hold up the business or sell to private equity. You sell to private equity, basically gut the place, rack it up with debt. And so actual people who care about their employees and their customers, not a good outcome for them. So we want to be there to capitalize on that.
So you guys pay that with cash and stock, I would imagine, right?
So cash, stock, and earnout.
Okay.
And so we've been very intentional. The stock that we issue for consideration has typically been at a price higher than whatever the market price is, and locked up for 3 years. And then the earnout is to ensure the success of it continuing to go.
You have many high security companies like the Army, the Navy, NSF.
Yeah.
Why are they coming to you when they have these multi-billion-dollar cyber security companies? Like, why do they need you?
So there's a bunch of different reasons. The first reason is that sometimes they're obligated to spend some portion of their budget on smaller companies. So it's called set asides, and they're obliged to spend this 10% or this 20% of the budget on a smaller company as opposed to going with the Northrops and the Lockheeds and that sort of thing. That's the first reason. Second reason is the larger companies may not be good at delivering value. So we've seen that time and again with large government projects. You bring in the IBMs and then they screw it up, and then somebody more nimble who actually has more capability comes in and saves the day. Third option might be that we've done something very similar to exactly what they want to do. So maybe IBM is kind of good generalists, but we're really good with data loss prevention and insider threat, which is sort of what our technology does. So they might come to us for this technology, and we'll sell them this, and we'll also sell them more of a package. So those are three different reasons. And I think the fourth thing is that what we have found is that by acquiring these existing companies, they oftentimes come with existing master service agreements, or in government vernacular, what's called contract vehicles. So we might buy the contract vehicle and sell to the Army.
So you have high security clearance?
If I did, I wouldn't be able to say.
No, but you must have if you're working for those people.
It's a fair assumption.
You know. And how long does it take for them to accept you? You're
Long, measured in years.
how many?
Years.
Years.
Yeah, which again, part of the reason why we're acquiring this as opposed to building it ourselves is to short circuit.
And how many years have you been doing this now?
We've been public since 2020. The company existed since 2016.
Yes. At the beginning of your talk, you mentioned Admiral and some fancy names people have. These are directors, I assume?
Directors and advisors.
Well, how do you pay these guys?
We don't.
I know, but you give them stock options.
They've been issuing stock options that are well out of the money. The reason they're doing this is that they see they're what's called mission focused people. They actually believe that for the good of the country or the good of the collective NATO allies, that they can continue providing service by securing both commercial and government supplies. And so that's really the why behind why they're called.
So they're out of the money. How much out of the money?
I think the average stock options right now are around 34 cents, and we're trading at 17.
Yeah, thank you.
I have one last question.
No, Paul.
Hi, I have another question that might be totally off base. I work primarily in social media. Right now, we are seeing TikTok being battered because of data mining.
Yeah.
In my opinion, every social media outlet data mines anyways. How do you keep up with all these different companies and all their ways of collecting information to make it work?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
I would say that there's generally, you generally group threats or group risks together. So generally speaking, social media networks, but also just applications that you install on your phone, like your weather app or your flashlight application or other things, kind of all fit in the same group of data harvesting. And if you think of that in terms of a group, there are ways that you can either mitigate that or kind of minimize that. I think the challenge with TikTok in particular is not that it's harvesting data, because you're right, Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, they're all doing the same thing. The challenge is that they are doing that and they're owned by the Chinese.
Why is owned by Chinese any different than being owned by anybody else? Just because they're doing it better than us, why does it make us, like, why is that their enemy? They are doing what the general populace wants to put out, and they found a way to do it. How do we get around all that with this? You know?
So I think that the challenge that TikTok presents is not that they're data harvesting, because you're right, there are a lot of other companies that harvest that data. I think the challenge is if we were in Canada, would we accept the Globe and Mail and the Vancouver Sun and all the other major newspapers being owned by the Chinese? So think of it more from a news publication source, their ability to influence opinion by serving specific content to the people.
But that's where critical thinking of the masses comes. Sorry.
Exactly.
That they will cut the links with the servers and put them in Houston, and nobody else can touch them.
I think that's a bigger, we're talking about a
Yeah.
bigger.
Right, so-
A bigger debate
I-
that we can have over wine, station.